Amid the cheers and flashing cameras excited for Trump's arrival, a small girl, barely 10, stood with her Bible clutched in her hands. Her eyes filled with a profound interest and curiosity. As Donald Trump whisked past the crowd, waving, the little girl jumped, caught his ties, and immediately asked, "Do you believe in God?" An immediate silence settled in the hall, leaving the crowd surprised and eager for his response. What would he say? Could this one moment reveal something deeper about the man behind the podium? The anticipation was palpable, and the moment nerve-wracking as the crowd filled the venue for a town hall event with President Donald Trump. That night, in the heart of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Lancaster Convention Center was the next stop at Trump's ongoing 2024 campaign efforts. However, this event was more than just a political rally. It was a faith-centered town hall meeting meant to energize Trump's Christian base. Supporters and curious locals alike had gathered, eager to hear his perspectives on pressing national issues and plans for the future of America. The small town of just under 1,300 people had never hosted a political event of this scale before. A number of Trump supporters gathered outside the hall, waving flags while some held signs that read, "God, Country, Trump," and MAGA hats with the familiar slogan, "Make America Great Again." A large stage had been set up at the front of the auditorium and was flanked by towering screens displaying patriotic imagery. The energy in the room shifted as Donald Trump stepped onto the stage, dressed in his infamous dark suit and red tie. He walked confidently to the podium with a bold and powerful aura. As he reached the microphone stand, the crowd started chanting, "USA! USA!" pumping their fists and cheering as he adjusted the microphone and began speaking, delivering an impactful speech about policies, faith, and personal reflections. Among the crowd was the 8-year-old Emily Turner, a resident of Lancaster with bright, curious eyes and a heart full of questions. Like anyone here, little Emily was excited to see the president. She had been quiet for most of the evening, sitting beside her mother, Sarah, who had brought her along, hoping to provide a first-hand experience of the political process. However, unlike many in the audience, Emily wasn't concerned about taxes or foreign policy. She had her reasons for attending, one that would shock both her mother and the crowd that gathered. Recently, she had been grappling with profound questions about faith and existence, especially after the loss of her grandmother, who, to Emily, had been like a guiding spiritual figure in her life. As the event commenced, Trump took the stage with his usual confidence and started by addressing several topics, from pressing economic issues to national security. Thought still electrified by the girl's question, he kept thinking of the right words to respond. He continued by sharing his ideas and thoughts on how to improve these areas if elected. His words reassured and reaffirmed the confidence his supporters had in him, that he was the right candidate for them. They responded enthusiastically, cheering at key moments and murmuring at his controversial points. Moments later, many hands shot up when the Q&A session started. Almost everyone in the hall had something important they wanted to ask the presidential candidate, but Trump still felt reluctant to pick any of the options from the crowd. Then, to everyone's surprise, Emily slowly raised her hand and repeated her question. "Mr. Trump, do you believe in God? And do you think he cares about people like me?" It was as if time had frozen, and for a moment, the murmurs stopped. The clapping and cheers ceased, and even the reporters who had been busy taking notes and adjusting cameras turned their full attention to the little girl. Most people were shocked by the question, but others were more impressed that it came from such a small girl. Trump, at this moment, knew he had to respond immediately. "Sweetheart, that's a beautiful question," he said, looking out at the crowd with a softened gaze. Then, his voice lowered. "There have been moments, big moments, when I prayed. You might not hear about them in the news, but they happened. In business, in life, in the White House. There were times I sat in the Oval Office, tough decisions on my desk, and I just asked God, 'Give me wisdom.'" The crowd was stunned and moved by emotions when they heard Trump's confession. It was a powerful moment that most people would not believe if they didn't see it themselves. Throughout the many courses of his appearances, Trump has barely openly talked about anything that affected his personal life, or anything that could show any of his personal struggles or bigger questions like this. Many people were used to seeing his bigger-than-life persona, which only made this moment highly revered. In a way, his encounter with Emily had brought him in touch with a softer, much more genuine side of himself, one that the demands of his role in his businesses and running a country do not let him see much often. Trump had long been seen as a man of contradictions, outspoken, controversial, and yet undeniably influential. This made many wonder at the time if this was a political answer or something deeper. I don't think you can do this job or any job without faith. It's what gives you strength. His gaze swept over the crowd as he spoke. The room remained still. Even the harshest critics couldn't deny the weight of his words. It was as if he needed them to have a little time to soak in the intensity of his words. For a moment, the hall fell into a deep silence. Then he leaned slightly forward, staring directly at Emily. The intensity of the moment was reflected in his eyes, and it began slowly. So, yes, young girl, I do believe in God. In fact, from the earliest days of our republic, faith in God has always been the ultimate source of the strength that beats in the hearts of our nation. He continued, There was a time, not too long ago, when I faced a great challenge. Some of you might remember the attempt on my life during a rally in Pennsylvania. I truly believe it was God who spared me that day, giving me a second chance to serve this great nation. The atmosphere in the crowd shifted again as most people recalled the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania that had shaken the nation. A gunman had fired a shot grazing Trump's ear before security took control of the situation. Many saw it as a miracle that he had survived. I believed in God before that, but I feel much more strongly about it now, he admitted. Something happened that day, something powerful, and it changed something in me. The audience was transfixed. This wasn't the regular Trump bravado. It was something different. As he addressed Emily directly, Trump's voice softened. So, to answer your question, I believe God does care about every one of us, including you. You're here for a reason, and your life has a purpose. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as his words resonated deeply within her. At that moment, it felt like Trump had spoken exactly the words her grandmother would have said. And at that moment, even as brief as it was, Emily felt a deep connection with her grandmother. Her lips stretched into a pained smile, but a weight had been taken off her chest. Finally, she had gotten the answer that she had needed for so long. The crowd once again erupted into applause, moved by the heartfelt exchange. Even those who weren't particularly religious seemed touched by the sincerity of the moment. At that time, the political event transformed into a poignant reminder of faith, resilience, and the profound impact of sincere human connection. Yet, despite getting the answer she needed to clarify her stance on her faith, Emily still had more questions she would like to ask Trump. She didn't have all the answers, and she hoped this moment would last just long enough for her to pick his brain and satisfy her natural curiosity. But she knew that his time was limited, and as such, she could not ask everything she needed answers for. However, that night, she walked away with something even more important: hope. Within hours, the clip would go viral across social media, with people on all sides of the political spectrum debating, analyzing, and for once, sharing something truly human. As the applause in Lancaster Convention Center faded, the atmosphere remained electric. The unexpected exchange between former President Donald Trump and 8-year-old Emily Turner transformed the evening into a deeply personal night that resonated with and had an impact on everyone in attendance. Emily still stood there, microphone in hand and her eyes glistening with tears. The weight of Trump's words settled over her like a warm blanket, offering her a deep solace. Her small frame trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming emotion of the moment. She took a deep breath and mustered the courage to respond. "Thank you, Mr. Trump," she began. "I miss my grandma a lot. She always told me that God has a plan for everyone. But when she went to heaven, I started to doubt that." The room remained silent, every ear listening keenly to the young girl's heartfelt confession. "Hearing you say that God cares about me," Emily continued, Makes me feel like maybe my grandma was right. Maybe he hasn't forgotten about me after all." The audience's reaction to Emily's words was deeply emotional. Many wiped their tears with tissues, moved by the sincerity of the exchange. Yet amidst the overwhelming support, some people still doubted its authenticity. They exchanged glances, questioning the authenticity of the moment. "Is this a setup?" a woman whispered to her husband. "It seems almost too perfect." While many journalists struggled to capture the essence of what they'd just witnessed in words, some were still torn about how this experience impacted people on a human level. For some, this moment was heartfelt and reflective, while for others, it created an opening to question the spontaneity of the exchange, or if this also a political mirage made to make Trump look good and win more supporters. Donald Trump connects with a young 8-year-old supporter in a town hall moment, an emotional moment that captured the hearts of many. Joan, a reporter with a local news agency, dictated into her recorder, focusing on the positive impact of the dialogue. However, while she may have felt positively about this encounter, it was clear that not all her colleagues felt the same way. As one typed furiously, "Questions arise over the authenticity of Trump's emotional encounter," hinting at the skepticism shared by a minority in the audience. Shortly after the interview was released, social media buzzed with reactions again. For most channels, the encounter was the focal point of discussions. Everyone had tuned in to leave an opinion or comment about the emotional encounter. Of course, certain groups were still skeptical about the authenticity, but many did not hold back their compliments. This is the kind of politics we need, real heartfelt connections. Thank you, Emily, for your bravery. Whether you are a supporter of Trump or not, you can't deny the impact of that exchange. Faith and compassion are the most integral parts of our human existence and should unite us all. Some deeply moved supporters shared on their social media. However, just as much as they were praises for the former president, some opposed his religious stance. This viewpoint led to political analysts being involved as they highlighted the potential implications of the events on Trump's public image, breaking down what this viral encounter would do for his campaign and ratings. However, merely days later, an unexpected development occurred, taking the media by storm and once again leaving everyone puzzled and stunned. A local news outlet reported that Emily's grandmother, Margaret Turner, had been a lifelong Democrat and a vocal critic of Trump. The news spread widely online and offline, sparking debates about the authenticity of Emily's question, and also raising questions about whether it had been influenced by external factors or intended for a different purpose. The controversy extended for a few days, and then Sarah called for an exclusive interview to address the issue and clear up all the bad press around her daughter. "Yes, my mother was a Democrat," she admitted. Yes, she had her own opinions about Mr. Trump. But Emily's question had nothing to do with politics. She paused, her eyes softening with deep emotions. This was about a little girl seeking comfort after a profound loss. At the corner of the room, Emily could be seen clutching a worn photo of her grandmother. She moved forward with purpose and said, "Grandma always told me to find answers for myself. That's all I was trying to do." The incident ignited discussions about the role of personal faith in politics and how politicians address deeply personal questions from constituents. It also highlighted the media's influence in shaping public perception, as different outlets chose to emphasize various aspects of the event. The discussions later reduced and the media moved on. But still, young Emily's question remained etched in the hearts of many. This moment was felt deeply across the nation and was not just an event in a hall. It was more than that. When people looked back at it, they now saw it as a reflection of something deeper. The sincerity in her voice, her courage, and the way her question cut through politics, reaching something so universal, were things that many still felt the impact of and still admired much later on. Trump's response was no short of what anybody expected. Some interviewers shared that they expected an off-the-record response, typical of Donald Trump, but his response was just as shocking to them. One of the reporters shared that it was a rare moment of vulnerability from a leader often known for his bravado, which only signified his powerful affirmation of belief. Nevertheless, some people could relate to the former president by acknowledging the complexities of faith in public life, especially one of such high social status. Still, it was collectively wished that the president's words and actions would truly align with his faith. From the moment it happened, everyone who had witnessed the encounter knew that this was a moment that transcended politics and would unite people in hot-button discussions about the intertwined faith and politics, regardless of their political stance. It was more than a curious child seeking answers. This would make the nation pause and listen. Although his Christian faith has not been widely popular, Trump's upbringing in the church was largely shaped by his parents, particularly his mother, Mary Ann Trump. Mary, who was a Scottish immigrant, held strong Christian beliefs. Although she was not deeply devout, she instilled a sense of faith in her son. His father, Fred Trump, was a hard-working businessman who, despite his demanding career, was also a man of faith. Donald Trump sometimes shares experiences that molded his faith in Christianity, saying, "It was most times a small gesture, but seeing it at the time of my youth reinforced my belief in my faith. Seeing my father quietly give money to the homeless was a small but meaningful act that reflected the values I learned and wanted to see more of." Although the former president has rarely been seen with significant religious influences, he has mentioned that one of the most significant influences in his early years was Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, the well-known and widely celebrated pastor and author of The Power of Positive Thinking. The media has often captured moments of him attending services at the Marble Collegiate Church in Manhattan, where Peale's sermons emphasized optimism, confidence, and success, principles that would later define his own approach to business and leadership. His experience with 8-year-old Emily made him reminisce about another time he had such a close, powerful encounter with a Christian gathering at the Yankee Stadium with his father. Gospel singer George Beverly Shea had left a lasting impression on him that day after his performance, leaving Trump reaffirmed and renewed in the faith. Over the years, his religious affiliations have changed, but Trump has often identified as Presbyterian. Looking at his Christian history, he seldom showcased his interest in evangelical activities. He was a member of the Reformed Church of America, but later aligned more with evangelical Christianity. However, the president's church attendance has been sporadic as a result of his political and business engagements. Having stated that, he mostly attends on Christmas, Easter, and other special occasions, but not necessarily every Sunday. Still, the people have accepted his stance and faith in the community, particularly after he emphasized the role of religion in America, calling it the glue that holds the country together. He shared his thoughts on the nation's problems, saying that many of these issues result from a decline in religious values and strengths. He insisted that reinstating these values would help the city regain its social and upright ethics. However, despite Trump's goodwill intentions and acts, there's still room for doubt that leaves many wondering if this is a personal endeavor or about maintaining a political tradition. As it's been common even among presidents before him, it's hard to imagine Trump's true motives. This has been a sore topic that many do not agree on. With most, his faith has been seen as more strategic than personal, maintaining that he uses it as a front to rally support from Christian conservatives, and over the years he has faced criticism for not displaying the same outward religious devotion as past presidents, in rarely quoting scriptures and appearing unfamiliar with key Christian teachings. For instance, in one interview, Trump struggled to provide an answer when asked about his favorite Bible verse, instead saying, "The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics." This uncertainty pushed a group of researchers to take a survey that discovered that while 2/3 of white evangelical Protestants viewed Trump favorably, the majority of atheists, agnostics, Black Protestants, and Jewish Americans had an unfavorable opinion of him and saw this as another political facade. Interestingly, many of his supporters don't necessarily see him as personally religious, but believe he stands up for people of faith. Speaking on faith in America, Trump expressed his beliefs, stating that faith isn't just about personal belief, it's about this country. America was built on faith. Our founding fathers believed in God. They put it in our Constitution. In God we trust. You see it on every dollar bill in every courtroom. It's what made this country great, and it's what will keep it great. His words felt like a powerful catalyst, sparking an excited reaction as the crowd erupted in loud cheers and applause. Many were amazed by how he could turn such a discussion into a powerful campaign moment. I've always fought for religious freedom. When churches were shut down during the pandemic, I stood up and said, "Let them open." When Christians were being persecuted overseas, we brought them home. We made sure faith was protected in schools. Under my leadership, no one had to hide their belief in God. Still, despite his powerful, moving words, there was a shift in the room. While his supporters cheered, others folded their arms, skeptical of his claims. Although he could clearly see that he'd won the crowd over, this address would not end until he acknowledged the elephant in the room. He drew a deep breath, looked around, and began, "Now, I know some people don't think I'm the typical Christian. They say, 'Oh, Trump doesn't sound like a preacher. Trump doesn't talk like a pastor.' Well, you know what? Maybe not, but I fight for faith, and sometimes faith needs a fighter." These words resonated with everyone across the room, and almost immediately the crowd erupted in a wave of applause, cheers, and gasps. When supporters were asked about the experience, they shared that the moment was raw, unscripted, undeniably Trump. The moment quickly went viral, and within hours, clips of the exchange flooded social media. A week later, Trump tweeted, "Faith isn't about being perfect. It's about believing in something greater. America is great because of its people of faith." Trump's relationship with faith has always been complex. Although this relationship is often under a scrutinizing lens, other times it is seen as a deeply passionate one. This was seen during his interaction with Emily, which was contrary to what everyone expected to hear, and Trump's response left them stunned. At that time, it didn't matter if it was politics or his personal truth. What mattered most was the lasting impression this had left. In a world often filled with skepticism, politics, and division, Emily's question had brought attention to issues that truly matter. And for one short moment, pure, unwavering faith was at the center of it all. Some moments are so profound that we are often left speechless, captured by awe. But there are some that leave you with a deep internal reflection. However, young Emily managed to capture both. As the world watched as the 8-year-old held the attention of the president in a room where she arguably mattered least, they were stunned and captured by her poise and thought-provoking question, leaving both Trump and the world to muse. What would your answer be to that little girl? How do you express your faith and hope in today's world? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our page. Before you go, click on the next video below.